Hi, Terry here with Bead Adyx Yarn, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a super simple fingerless glove. This is going to make the thumb hole easier. There is a little bit of crocheting involved in it. If you don't crochet, you might be able to figure out how to incorporate doing a little bit of knitting into the beginning and the end and the thumb hole of this pattern. But there's a couple things that you will need to uh, start with waste yarn, end with waste yarn, and we are also going to be starting with a long tail, which I'll tell you about that when we get to it, and ending with a long tail. So this way, when you're doing your finishing of the both ends of the fingerless glove, you already have the yarn that you need for the pattern that I'm teaching. Okay, and then you don't have to tie on and stuff. It's just a real streamlined way of making this, and it comes out really cute and it's really comfortable. I am using for the glove itself. This is Impeccable yarn by Loops and Threads, available at Michael's. It's you could also use like a Red Heart Super Saver weight. It makes a nice glove. It's not too thin, not too thick. It's very comfortable when you're making it with this machine. So we're going to get started, and first what we're going to do is with our actual yarn for the glove is we're going to measure out 5 yards, and I do that by arm lengths because my arm length is about 5 feet. If I go from fingertip to fingertip, it's approximately 5 feet. That's how I measure a lot of things because then I don't need a measuring tape. These are approximate, so 5 yards would be 15 feet. So so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to measure that out now while we're talking. 1, 2, 3, and I know you can't see that, and I had a little bit of a naughty blurb in my yarn, but that doesn't matter. If I have a little bit more, that's okay. We can just cut that off. So we're going to put that aside so I know where to start. I'm going to be starting right here. Okay, that's my beginning. But first we need to start off with waste yarn. So it can be any weight. It doesn't really matter. And something I like to do on all of my machines is I like to put a little mark on where right before my very first peg. So this way when it's going around, I can see where that first peg's coming up before it gets to the colored stitch. I can kind of plan ahead when I know I'm coming near to the end. I know a lot of people put markers or nail polish or whatever, but it's just a nice little thing. So now we're just going to start with some waste yarn. And we're going to do our regular cast on, which is in front of the first needle, behind the second, in front of the third, behind the fourth, in front of the fifth, behind the sixth, and so on. You do that all the way around. And like I like to mention in all of my videos when I'm doing a cast on is when you get to your last needle, if you're doing a total circular knitting, when you get to your last needle, you want to be behind the last needle. If you're in front of it, then you did something wrong and you need to go back and figure out what you did wrong, because it's probably not going to knit right. So let's get started with this. We're just casting on with waste yarn. And of course, on my machine, my first row is always a little tight. I guess I just cast on a little tight, and then it seems to go nice and smooth. You can do, 5, 6, 10 rounds. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you're comfortable with. You just want to watch. This will be my last one because I'm coming towards the end of my waste yarn. Okay. And we'll put that down in there. And then we're going to take our measured blob of yarn here that we have here for our 15 feet of tail that we need, and just stick that in there. Okay, and we're going to set up our machine to begin knitting. Let's get that's good there. Put our row counter to 1 or to 0. So we're starting out right, and we're going to knit 8 rows to begin with here. Okay. Knitting 8. Need to pull some yarn out of my skein. This is a new skein, so it doesn't flow out nicely. Ooh, man, I'm really getting some wobbling in the camera here, or on my table, I should say. But bear with it. This isn't my usual setup here. Everything's moving except my machine. Okay, we're on our 8th round here, but hopefully you'll be able to see this. Okay, we're at number 8. I lost my somewhere. I lost. Oh, there's my little pick tool. So you're going to knit your first on row 9. Okay, knit your first needle. Okay, which will be your black one on this machine, and then you're going to pull that out a little bit, about 1 inch. Okay, with your pick, and then you knit your second needle, and you just hold on to that as you go around. I'm not holding on to it very well, but okay. And then we come around again on row 10. We're going to knit that first one and do the same thing again on row 10, and we just pull it out. I just pull it out to the same length as the other one. Okay, let me see if I get around this way and we have good light, you might be able to see that there's 2. There'll be, here's the first one right here. Okay, and then here will be the second one. Okay, and continue knitting, and I like to hold on to that until I get back around, and then you're going to be continue knitting just as normal for a total of 38 rows. Okay, we're on 37. One more row to go. Okay, we've completed 38 rows. Now we're going to take our yarn out, and we're going to count 2. I use arm lengths again. 2 arm lengths, about 10 feet of yarn for our ending tail. Okay, I got that. You can do a little bit more for comfort if you want. Oops. Or that would be about 2.5 yards. Okay, then we're going to end in waste yarn. Okay, so just put our waste yarn in. Get that on the right side of the hook. Needle. And you can do 5, 10 rows. I like to recycle my waste yarn instead of cutting it off. So I'll just do to the length of whatever I have here. If you have 4 or 5, and then I just let it go all the way until it starts to come off the machine by itself. Okay, we're getting there. Let's pull those last couple. Everything's off except this one here. Okay, Now this is what we got. Here's our thumb hole. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the next step of crocheting, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so now we've taken our knitted fingerless glove, or our knitted portion of our fingerless glove off the machine, and we're going to get started with the crocheting part. And I am using I don't know if you'll be able to see it, a number H 5mm crochet hook for this. Okay, I've taken our extra long tails that we had, and this one I've already balled up into a center pull, I don't know, a center pull mini skein. I'll show you how I do that because it's just a real easy way, and I prefer center pull skeins. Even when I work with my yarn from my machine, I always pull from the center, because then your skein or whatever you're working with is not constantly moving and twisting or untwisting. On the knitting machines, you'll find that if you do that and your yarn does start to untwist, then you're going to have a lot of splitting, and it won't go onto the hook right. So what I do is, okay, now this was the part that's attached to my glove, but this would be what's coming out of the center. Okay, so I just kind of hold that in my hand and wrap around kind of loosely around my fingers. Get my crochet hook out of the way until I have a little bit of tail here. Then I just take it off and take that tail and wrap it around again loosely a few times and tuck it in to itself. And then you have a little mini skein that you can just pull from like this when you need it. So we have them done. The larger one is at the top, and the way you know that, if you're not sure when you're looking at this, is here's where you made your thumb hole. Okay, and you started with waste yarn, then you knit 8 rows, then you created your thumb hole, and then you knit more for a total of 38 rows, and then ended in waste yarn. Okay, and then we left another approximately 10-foot tail. Okay, and these will be used for crocheting our edges, and that's what we're going to get started on now. Okay, here is our tail coming out of our work. All right, so our first stitch actually is going to be right in here, which is our next stitch. Here's where our last one was, right here. Okay, and then our next one's going to be right here, and I like to work through both of these loops here. The first 2, it just gives it a little bit more stability. Okay, so we're going to first pull through, make a chain. Okay, and then we're going to single crochet in that same stitch. And let me zoom in a little bit here to see if we can make this a little bit better for you to see. Okay, here we go again. We're going in both of these stitches here. Okay, and it just gives it more stability so that it doesn't pull out, it doesn't stretch out as much or as easily after you've worn these a few times. Okay, and we're going to single crochet all the way around, and I didn't count. I usually count to make sure that we have 22, so we're not missing anything. But okay, here we go. Here we go. I'll just show you this real good. Okay, we're going into those 2 stitches, which when you're looking at it, they kind of stand up. If you fold your waist yarn down, they just kind of sit right up there so you can find them easily. And you just go in and do your single crochet all the way around. Now if you crochet tightly or tight, you might either want to go up a hook size, or you could put a single crochet in between, and you'll be able to test that out a little bit as you're going along. If it looks like it's pulling in here, see, if you look at this, it's all kind of like, oops, I'm out of the camera range here because I zoomed in, but it's all laying nice and there's no gathering in here. If yours is starting to pull in because you crochet tighter, like I said, you could either go up a crochet hook, which would probably be the best thing to do, or add a single crochet into each of these. But then if you want to, I like to finish mine with a crab stitch at the end, and I'll show you that in a minute. If you want to do that, then if you're putting that extra, it wouldn't be an extra single, it would be a chain that you'll be putting in between your stitches. If you do that, then your crab stitch may not come out as nice looking. And a crab stitch is also known as a reverse single crochet. And I'm also going to show you how to know if you're doing it right. Okay, now here's our last stitch here. Alrighty, so we're going to go in there. Oh, we don't want to pick up the waist yarn though. Okay, and then we will go into our first one and do a join. Okay, it's just a slip stitch through the first single crochet. Now if you want to do, now we can take our waist yarn off to make things a little easier, and the way I do that is, I don't know, let me see, there's one end that you can just pull, the other one you can just pull it. This one you'd have to pull it all out. So what you need to do is you need to find your, where's my pick? I need my pick. I need my pick. You need to find where that, how that waist yarn is going in here. And I need to take my glasses off so I can see this better too. So you'll see that here's your tail, okay? And then you can just pull those stitches out. Pull that first stitch out. Just go around and pull them all out. You can pull on this a little bit and it's not going to affect anything. Just pull this out all the way around. And then you can reuse your waist yarn. Some people cut the waist yarn off. And I need to put my glasses back on now that I know what I'm doing here, so I can see my camera too, so I can see what you're seeing. Anybody that thinks that doing these videos is an easy thing, try it sometime. You have to be paying attention to what you're doing and what's showing on the camera, whether it's focused in, whether you're in the right spot for the camera to pick it up. You have to watch your voice. If you talk too loud, then it's going to be too noisy on your, I mean, you can do a little bit of editing with that stuff. But there's a lot involved. And then when it's all done, it's not just, okay, I did a video, not unless you're doing it live or you're really good at it, but I'm not that good at it. But then you have to do your editing and then your processing. and then you have to upload it to YouTube. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into these videos. So please, if you anybody that watches any YouTube videos, please be appreciative of the work that the person who created the video has put into it. It's not just something that you just go and do, and there's no time involved in it, because there is, if you want to do it right. Now mine, okay, it's not professional. I do it all myself though. I don't have anybody doing this portion for me. Nor do I have anybody doing my website for me. Everything I do on my own. I've learned an awful lot over the years of selling online, selling at craft shows. Anything you want to know, ask me, and I'll see if I can't help you out. But it is quite a task having your own business. I have an online yarn store, in case you didn't know, and we also sell the Centro knitting machines on our website. So a little commercial here at the same time while I'm working here. But we're almost to the end. So if I stop at times, like it seems like I'm losing my place, it's because I'm trying to do many things at the same time. Okay, we got that one done. Oh. All right, so now our waste yarn's off. Now, if you want, you can leave it looking just like this, okay, with just a single crochet around it. And here's where your thumb hole would be, and here's where it would lay on your hand. And as you can see, it does make a nice glove. And this is not finished. Of course, this end's not finished, and I roll up the brim. Let me show you real quick what a finished one looks like. Here is my finished glove with the thumb hole, and this has the crab stitch around the top, which is a very nice decorative stitch. I do a fold up cuff, put a cute little button on there, and I also do the crab stitch around here too. I just think it's a nice finished look. And the nice thing about these gloves is they can be worn on either hand. It just depends on where you put the button. I always put the button on the pinky. Oh, my birds are starting. I guess I'm getting too loud. So please bear with the birds. But this is what the finished product looks like. But we're going to get moving on here. And we will finish off with our crab stitch. It is a reverse single crochet. Okay, so what you're going to do is we've done our slip stitch here. Okay, you're going to do a chain. Okay, and then you're going to take your hook and you're going to go back into the previous single crochet that you created. So you're going to go back into it, and then you're going to come around, and you kind of have to do, this is kind of reverse, hence the name, reverse single crochet. And then you're going to complete your crochet. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to do these really slow, and let me zoom in really good. Let me see. Oh, I'm zoomed in as much as I can, so I'm going to pull up to the camera. Okay, and let's hope that we can stay in range. Okay. So here's our next single crochet right here. So we're going to go take our hook, go into that single crochet, okay, which is right here. Okay, we're going to go into there, come around. We're going to pick up the yarn, not the way we usually do, like this. We're going to do it reverse. We're going over the yarn and picking it up, pulling it through, and you'll have 2 loops on the hook, and then you're going to go over and do it the way we're used to. Okay. All right, do it again, real nice and slow. Hook backwards, kind of in a reverse direction into that next single crochet, which is right there. Into there, we come up, we grab it, go over the yarn, grab it, pull it through, hook goes back into a normal position as we finish the stitch. Now, sometimes this can get confusing and you can do this in the wrong direction. The way you know you're going in the right direction is that you will have, can you see there's two pieces of yarn there and there's two pieces of yarn there. They will be in the front. If you're doing it in the wrong direction, you're going to have like knots in the front, and that's not going to be looking quite as nice. This is a very nice decorative stitch, and you don't have to finish it this way. If you don't want, you can just leave it with a single crochet, but I just think that this is a really nice look for these gloves, and you don't want to do it too tight because then your hand's not going to fit comfortably in the glove. So I'm going to continue on until I get back to the beginning. Okay, we're coming back around and doing our last couple stitches here. And this was our, well, this was kind of our first one, so we're going to go back into there. And we just want this to finish off real nice so that we're ending in a crab stitch here. So we're just going to take this. Okay, I don't know if you can see it. This was actually our first completed crab stitch. Okay, so we're going to go back into that same spot and pull through and do another one. Okay, and then we can just cut our yarn off. Oh, these scissors are terrible. Let me get my better ones to work with from the rest. And this extra yarn is, we'll be using this on our thumb hole. Okay, so you're going to want to hold on to that. Alrighty, so now we have a tail, and then you're just going to weave in your tail and secure it. I like to just go through a few of these stitches in the back here. Pull that through. And I like to just go through this a couple times. Now what I'll do is I'll go back in the opposite direction, but I'll leave out, I won't go exactly through all the same threads. I'll go through like one less and go back through. And I do this, like this is the second time, the second pass. And then I like to do 3 passes. You don't want to pull it too much or it's going to bunch up your work. And then I'll go through here. I am. This is where, oh, this is where I'm coming out. So I'm going to skip this right here and go into here and just go through a few stitches here and pull that through, and then we are done. Okay, we're at our other end. This will be the cuff area, and this we're going to work half double crochets around, and we're going to be going through 2 loops again as we did with the other one. So here is where our yarn is coming out of. Okay, so I always start in the next stitch, and again I'm going to be going through the 2 loops. Okay, just for stability. Do a chain, and then I'm going to do a half double crochet. Okay, and then another half double crochet in the next one. And I do these kind of loosely so that there is some, not too loose, they're nice and formed. And something you need to watch on this, because we're going to be turning our cuff up. So this is the outside part that's going to be showing. So that's why you want to make sure that you're working on the inside, not from the outside. You're not going in this direction, okay? Because if you go in through this direction, then you're you're not going to be seeing the nicer part of the half double crochet. You're going to be seeing this part of the half double crochet, which isn't quite as pretty. So you need to be working from the inside out, if that makes sense. Okay, and let me just, in case you're not familiar with a half double crochet, I guess I should take a little bit of time and show you. You have your yarn on your hook. You're going to yarn over, bring it around, go through those 2 loops that I talked about right here. Yarn over again, pull through. You have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3. And that is a half double crochet in US terms. So we'll finish this up all the way around. All right, so now we're coming down to our last couple stitches. Alrighty, so we're going to do a half double crochet, and then this is our last one, and you can kind of tell because here's our tail. So we just want to make sure that we go through the 2 loops on here. Okay, and then we're going to come back around. I think I want to put another one in here because I don't want that. I want to leave some extra space. So this is where we did the chain 1. So we'll do that one, and then we can do a slip stitch into the top. Okay, now we want to make sure that we have a little bit of give in this, and that it's not pulling in, like I said, in the same with the fingers. Okay, because this is going to be folding up and to form a cuff. Now I want to end in a crab stitch, but first I want to take my waste yarn off, and you do not have to take your waste yarn off at this point, but I like to, and this one's easier because we can just pull it off. Now, like I said, with this, you can end it like this, and that's how it will look, or you can finish it off with the crab stitch so you can see the difference. It's just a little more decorative. It adds a little more body to it than just the half double crochet. So we will move onward, and let me see if I got this direction right. Okay, so we were crocheting. This was our last one, and we slip stitched into here. Okay, so let me see if I do this. So we're going to continue around. Okay, same way. Reverse crab stitch all the way around, because then that's going to fold up And that's what our work will look like. Okay, now we're at the end and we are going into doing our last crab stitch here. And we can pull our tail through and finish it off just as we did the top. Okay, now for the part you've all been waiting for, but see, that's how that'll work out. You just put it now on this one. Okay, now this, you have to remember when you're doing this. After we do this, we'll do this in a minute, but you have to remember, if you want to put your button on now, you have to, if you have both of them, you have your first one completed, you have to remember where you put the button on that one, because on this one the button's going to go over here. Okay, and then the nice thing about it is it just folds down. So if you want a extra long glove, you can have it if it's really cold and you want to keep your wrist warm. Or because we did a half double crochet here, it leaves enough space for the button. Now that's another thing, you're going to have to watch your size of your button. I think this is like a 3/4 inch button, and it works nicely with my half double crochets the way I do it. Okay, so now we're going to go on to our thumb. Now this part is a little tricky, and it's not like, there's not a definite science to it. So it's kind of a little bit of winging it. But I can give you approximates. Okay, now here's where the yarns that you pulled out are here. I usually like to kind of split them this way, and then I just kind of work them in as I'm crocheting around, and that's all we're going to do. Now I like to leave a little bit of a tail because it comes in handy for a couple reasons. If you work it into your work as you're going around, then for one, you don't have a tail to weave in, or you don't have or to weave in later. And if you notice the way we did this, there was no weaving in except at the end of our work. On this row, the only time we had to weave anything in was when we got to the very end, and also on this. I like to make things as simple as possible. That's one of the things I do not like, is weaving in ends. And I don't know if you're like me, but the less you have to do, the better. So I like to try to do that as much as possible. Even when I'm beginning a project, a lot of times I'll do the same thing. I'll work it into my crochet as I'm going along, as we're going to do here. And it will also, it won't, for one, it will weave in that end or the beginning thread, but it will also allow you to make some adjustments in this if you need to tighten it up a little bit or loosen it up a little bit. You can do that because you're actually going to make that end is going to be a carrying thread around. So I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Okay, so you want to, that's probably 6 inches or so. That's probably more than sufficient. Now I like to start over here where we have some nice body. Okay, here's where, that's the one. Oh, we can work them both in up at the top. The extra threads that we had, we can put them both up at the top. Now you need this, if you want to say to yourself, well, why do I have to pull that yarn out when I'm making the thumb hole? If you don't, then you're not going to have the opening, and you're not going to have the little bit of stretch that you're going to need for the thumb. Now, if you like a bigger, larger thumb hole, then you could, I don't know if you could pull it out a little bit more probably, but that is sufficient, and you can test it for your thumb to fit in there. See? It's a sufficient opening, and we're not going to, you could crochet up further if you wish, but I like to keep it just little like this, and just do a, I think it was a single crochet I did around. Yeah, it was just a single crochet, but it was a loose single crochet. So, like I said, we're going to start now. If you want to look real closely here, here's where our two threads were that we loosened up. Okay, here's where this one's going in, and this is, you do not have to put it exactly here. It's just that this is a place where I like to start all the time. I'm just going to slip in under that stitch there and begin my work. Okay, and we're leaving our little bit of a tail here. Going to start with a chain, and then we're going to take our tail that we had here, and we're going to work that in. We're going to crochet right around that also. So we're going to do a single crochet in the same spot where we did our chain. Do a single crochet there. Okay, now if you wanted to make this a little bit bigger, you could probably do a half double crochet or a double crochet, and it would make the stitch a little bit larger, and then it would go up your thumb a little bit more if that's how you like to do it. That's fine too. You could try that and see how it works. And then this part is, you're just kind of eyeing where you're putting your stitches, and I usually work approximately 10 single crochets around here, and you'll kind of see how it goes as you're working it. Like some places you might need to pick up, like here's our yarns. This is our extra threads that we pulled out. So when we go through this, we're going to want to do a little extra, and don't forget to keep that carrying thread. And if you're not sure what I'm trying to explain here, here's that tail, and you're working that into, that's going through each single crochet. Okay, and you want to try to work it so that sometimes you have to go around through two pieces of yarn or two thicknesses of yarn. Sometimes you have to go through three to make this work nice, and to fill in all the holes. You want to make sure, like if we went through it here, we might have a bit of a hole here, so we'll go through an extra one, and keeping that carrying thread in there. We just want to make it nice and stable. And we crochet all the way around. Right in there. I'm going to go in here. Again, keeping this carrying thread working through, and I'll show you how that comes in handy. Let me see how many I got there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I got 10 stitches here. I'm going to do another one for 11. Okay, and then I'm going to come back into the top of our first one and do a slip stitch. Okay. Now we can cut our thread, our yarn. Now, here's our tail here. Now, what you're going to want to do is put your hand in there and see if that's comfortable. And see how it's looking around here, that there's no big gaps or anything. Okay. Now, if you wanted this tighter, you can pull on this and it's going to make the whole thing a little bit tighter, because this thread goes all the way through every one of these stitches, and it just snugs it up a little bit to make it nice. And then we can, and I like to finish my work like this. Okay, here was our join. Okay, so then I want to finish my stitch by pulling these through here. Okay, going under that first one and then coming back up through where this one came out of, through this loop, going back up here, and this just finishes the stitch off nicely. Pull that back through. If I get all the yarn, there we go. And then it just gives us a nice complete finish. And then we want to pull in that little tail, and then we can just tie these together, not too tight. Give it a nice knot, and then you can weave in your ends. Then we will have our next completed glove without the button yet. Okay, that's it. I hope you liked it. Be sure to save the video. Subscribe to my video channel, as I hope to be putting out a lot more of these. And like us on Facebook. Check out my website, www.beadadyxyarn.com. We have great sales. We have yarn. We have all kinds of fun stuff on there. You can get crochet hooks. You can get cord slides. We have kumihimo discs. We have a whole lot of diverse stuff that I like to put things on my website that are hard to find, that I can get a hold of, but for a good price. And so I hope to hear from you. Give me some comments on what you think of my video. And thanks again for watching. I hope to see you soon.